Hey everyone, what I want to do is I kind of want to walk you through just a quick review of what you learned on Monday about chemical formulas in element and compound. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to show you exactly what to do for your little lab activity. So again, this is chemical formulas and counting atoms. So we know that elements is it's a pure substance and it cannot be broken down. So we have the periodic table of elements, that's hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, and all of those. And again, those elements make up everything, all solids, all liquids, and all gases. So a chemical formula is kind of the ingredients. It tells us what elements make up that matter. And it also tells us how many atoms there are per element. Remember, elements are made up of atoms. So for example, hydrogen is made up of hydrogen atoms. Helium is made up of helium atoms. Okay, and so you can see here a compound is a substance that is made up of more than one element. A compound can be broken down into its individual elements. So if we look here, we have these blue circles represents an element. We have some purplish color ones represent a different element, and then we've got the green squares, which again represents. So we have a total of 3 different elements here. So an element is a pure substance, but a compound is when 2 or more elements combine. So think of a compound word. A compound word is a word that's made up of 2 separate words. Well, a compound is made up of 2 or more different elements. All right. So a formula, there is a rule. What you need to know is that it's first made up of the symbol. If you look at your periodic table, those letters are the symbol. So it always has a capital letter. It starts off with a capital letter. The first letter is always capital. If it has more than one letter to it, the second letter is going to be lowercase, and every element has its own symbol. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to look at this. So here's the substance, water. That's a liquid. Well, what's it made up of? Well, here's the chemical formula. It tells us that it's made up of 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen. But if we look here, we have 2 capital letters. That means it's 2 separate elements. So we would say that this is a compound. Coal is made up of just carbon. You only see 1 capital letter, so that makes it an element. Remember, a compound is 2 or more elements combined. Carbon dioxide, again, you have 2 capital letters. That means we have 2 elements. That's a compound. Oxygen is an element, just 1 capital letter. Chalk, there's 1, 2, 3. You have calcium. Those 2 letters go together. You have carbon and oxygen. That's a compound. Wax is C and H, carbon and hydrogen, made of 2 separate elements, so that's a compound. Table salt is NaCl. That's a N, capital N, lowercase a, capital C, lowercase l. So we have 2 separate elements. That's a compound. And finally, caffeine. I will let you figure that one out. Okay? And then here are the answers. Continuing on. Again, we're looking at a chemical formula, 2 separate capital letters. So we have 2 separate elements. But again, the subscript are the little numbers. They tell us how many atoms there are of that element. You'll notice hydrogen has a subscript of 2. That means we have 2 atoms of hydrogen. Sulfur doesn't have one, which is a 1. It's an automatic 1. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to first identify what elements we have. So we have Na, that's sodium. So we write it down. And we have oxygen, so we write that down as well. And then look, you have a subscript of 2, so you have 2 atoms of sodium and 1 atom of oxygen because there is no subscript. All right. Again, we have 3 capital letters, so we have 3 separate elements that make up this compound. We have, that should be a U, that's copper. There is no subscript, so it's 1 atom of copper. Sulfur, there is 1 atom of sulfur. And then oxygen, there are 4. Okay, I'm not sure why these are not how they're supposed to be. I'll fix those. And then what you're going to do is these last 3, you're going to practice it yourself. You're going to write the element that you see and then write equals, and then the number is going to be how many atoms there are for that element. So do those 3 in your INB.